Hello, everyone, and welcome back. My name is Sam.
And I'm Melissa.
I grew up in the FLDS community, which is run by Warren Jeffs, and I moved out of that community when I was 18 years old.
Yes, I was raised LDS. We've been married for 7 years, have two beautiful children, and just recently left the LDS church.
Yep.
So we wanted to answer some questions that we've gotten a lot of, actually. And that has been why and how Sam left the FLDS church and pretty quickly moved into joining the LDS church. So what kind of caused that? We get that comment and question all the time.
It's been a popular one, and I wasn't really sure how to answer this question, so we're going to try our best here. I'm going to try my best to answer that question, but it's kind of a long answer, but a very good question.
Yeah, very, very good question. And there's really a couple pieces to it that we kind of wanted to talk about and bring up. The first one would be, for those of you who have already heard Sam's story, if not, I'll leave a link to the video of how and why he left. But one of the main things was the family that took him in after he originally left was LDS.
Yes.
Well, so what kind of, and they still are, yeah, of course. So what kind of influence and role did they play in your conversion story?
Of course. Yeah, so and a lot of, I mean, some of the comments are people almost concerned for me. They're that we've had. They're like, why would you leave one and go to another, and why would you give up the freedom and all this different stuff? But really, I mean, you'd almost have to live in my shoes to fully understand how that all was and why I made the choices that I made. It's not very easy to just explain and just hope that you understand perfectly, but I'll try my best. But yeah, so when I moved out, I was almost immediately accepted in by a family that just took me and one of my brothers in and just helped us get on our feet and gave us everything that we needed to help us out. We had just left our family behind. We didn't really have a direction or anywhere to go, and they just took us in and said, "Here, we're here for you. We got you." And like Melissa said, they are members of the LDS Church. So in that way, I was pretty quickly introduced to the LDS Church coming from the FLDS Church. Now, for those of you that don't know, the FLDS and the LDS have a lot of similar scriptures and doctrines. Obviously, over the years, they've changed quite a bit, but the main ones, like the Book of Mormon, first several prophets actually were the same.
Yeah, most of the beginning history of both the churches are the same. Mm-hmm. So they split off, but all that history is the same. Belief in Joseph Smith, belief in the Book of Mormon that you mentioned, even just the core doctrine of like who God is, who Jesus Christ is. A lot of the core doctrine is the exact same.
Our purpose on this earth, and what's our goal in the next life, and all those type of things line up pretty well.
Yeah, and pre-existence and what happens after you die. So a lot of those core things are exactly the same.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, you can tell how you felt, but obviously it's going to be
very similar. In some ways, it kind of felt comforting and something that I was familiar with, and it just felt like it would be a pretty easy transition. Now, of course, it's important to remember, I have mentioned this before, but when I left the FLDS church, I didn't necessarily leave it because I didn't believe in the teachings or the church itself. I left it because I wanted a different lifestyle. And so, that keeping that in mind, it wasn't like I just said, okay, I don't believe in God anymore. I don't believe in the church. I actually thought that one day I might return, and because I thought at that point that was the only way to return to be with God was to be a part of that church. So anyway,
I think that's probably honestly one of the biggest factors that separate Sam a little bit from a lot of people who have left other religions in general, is that a lot of times they lose their faith or they lose their belief in that religion, or they don't agree with some of the doctrine and start having doubts or questions, and that was not Sam's case. Mm-hmm. So when you're leaving with still those core beliefs, finding those same core beliefs somewhere else, like Sam said, is like a comfort and familiar, and he didn't leave because he didn't believe those were true.
Right.
So hopefully that, like, just that alone hopefully sheds a little bit of light on the answer to that question of like why you'd go from one to the other. But he never stopped really believing in the first one. It was the lifestyle that he wanted to discontinue.
Yeah, and obviously it was very difficult to not be with my family anymore, and it was that, and also the idea that I would never, when I left the FLDS, I thought, okay, I'm going down. I'm going straight. I'm not. I'll have no chance of returning to live with God unless I return at some point. So that was kind of my idea. So then to be introduced to the LDS church, where very, very similar in some ways, and also the missionaries teaching and the family that took us in, teaching me and my brother about how if we follow this gospel and these teachings, that we would be able to return and live with God again, and return and be in His presence and be with our family forever. You can imagine how good that would sound as a young boy and young teenager, I guess. And anyway, so it was just something that I needed something to hold on to. I needed a direction to go, and it was something that it just made sense at the time for me. And looking back now, I had the experiences that I was able to gain throughout this whole experience of with the LDS Church, and with this wonderful family that I call 100% my family today.
Yeah, they're totally our family.
Yes.
They're still our family right now.
they took me in, and they helped me with everything I needed. So it was the experiences that I have been able to have throughout this whole experience have just been wonderful, and I wouldn't change it. Even though our beliefs now are a little bit different, and they continue to evolve and change over time, and I think that's okay. I think that people have the right to continually learn more and change their ideas throughout life. But anyway, so it was just, at the time, it was exactly what I needed.
Yeah, I was going to say too, one of the other things that some people might have heard of in other videos that we talked about is, when Sam decided to leave, he had met this family before, and the FLDS teaches that, if you leave, you're going to be super unhappy. And they had and still do, have a very happy, loving home. And that was something that was very appealing to you to begin with, the idea that people could be happy. And so I think anytime you see people being happy and having joy and a kind, loving home, you're going to be drawn to that.
Yep.
And they had the LDS church, the LDS gospel. And so who wouldn't see that and want to be a part of it? Like, they were already drawing him in as a part of their family. And so to see that is what brings them joy and happiness, why wouldn't you be drawn to that same joy and happiness? If that makes sense. I hope that makes sense what I'm trying to say. But I feel like that probably also had a big impact.
It did. That was actually one of the main reasons that I started realizing that what I had been taught as a child wasn't true, because I was taught, like Melissa said, that outside of this religion, outside of this belief, no one can truly be happy. And to come across and be welcomed into this home and this family, and see how happy they were and the joy that they had, and other families around them, the neighbors, and we were introduced to so many people that just seemed so happy, and they just seemed like great, wonderful people. It made me think twice about what I had been taught, and realize, okay, maybe there's more to all of this, and so at that point I just wanted to learn more and grow from there. So
yeah, on the flip side of the things that kind of made it easy to become LDS from the FLDS, what would you say was the hardest thing about transitioning? Because while there's so many similarities, there's also huge differences, yes. Right? Obviously polygamy being one, but there's so many others, since there have been different lines of prophets and modern revelation. So, I mean, the beginning's the same, but out towards the ending is very, very different, and where they land right now is very, very different. So what would you say was the hardest part of your faith transition from the FLDS beliefs to the LDS beliefs?
Well, very easy, actually. Easy question. Great question, but easy, because I remember it like it was yesterday. It was the prophet, who the prophet was. That was the most difficult, because I, as a very, very young boy, I would stand up in front of my family and in church meetings and bear my testimony about Reuben Jeffs and then Warren Jeffs being the only true prophet on the earth, and I believed it 100%. That's what I was taught. That's how I was raised. That's what I believed. So then to very quickly, within a matter of a few months, switch over to, okay, now I believe that this other man is the only true prophet on earth that holds all of the keys. I was, that was just the first time I started thinking those thoughts, and the first time I said those thoughts out loud, because, the missionaries would ask me those kind of questions. Do you believe that this man is the prophet of God? When I started saying those things, that took a little bit of, I guess it was just a big change. It took it was a big transition. It took me a little bit of time to think about it and be like, wow, am I allowed to say this? Like, this is such a big change and such a big difference. So that would be probably the biggest challenge I had.
Yeah. Also, sorry, I just thought of one more thing too.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to put words into your mouth, but
no, I know.
I know we've just talked about this a lot before. But also a lot of people, and we see this in the comment section as well, that a lot of people look at the LDS religion as being very high demanding and having a lot of rules. But for Sam, coming from the FLDS, did the LDS religion seem very restrictive to you?
Not at all. In fact, it was like complete freedom compared to where I came from. Because yes, compared to other beliefs and other things out there, the LDS church does have a lot of rules. Mm-hmm. Everyone would agree with that. But coming from the FLDS, no, these rules were like, oh, okay, that's fine, no big deal. In fact, when I was on my mission in Chile, obviously when you're on a mission, there are a whole other set of rules and a lot more strict. But while I was on my mission, that felt a lot more similar to my everyday rules that I was used to growing up in the FLDS. You're not, no dating, just very movies, you're only supposed to listen to certain music and that type of thing. I was like, oh, this is no big deal.
I never thought of that similarity until you just said that. That's kind of hilarious.
While other missionaries out there were struggling with so many rules and things, I was just like, oh, this is not too bad. So anyway, from going from the FLDS to the LDS rules seemed like nothing compared to what I was used to.
Yeah. So hopefully that sheds a little bit of light to answer those questions for people who are curious about that transition and kind of what would cause somebody to go from one religion to another so quickly. But if you guys have more questions about it, please leave it in the comment section. We love to make more videos answering your questions.
Yes, once again, thank you for all of your questions. We just love you guys and appreciate you being here and watching our content. So
we'll talk to y'all soon.
We'll talk to you soon.